The slap of the door echoed across the dusty compound. Sandra stumbled forward as her stepmother, Monica, dragged her by the arm. Morning sun burned on the zinc roof and made the sand sparkle like tiny needles. Monica flung a worn black bag at her. "I knew you would be wayward like your late mother," she shouted, eyes hot and bright. "Thank God your father Andrew is not here to protect you. You will not disgrace this family. Carry your bag and that your cursed child and go away with the homeless man you call your husband." Neighbors peeked from doorways and from behind curtains. No one moved. No one spoke. Monica's tongue was a whip. Everyone feared it. Johnson stood near the mango tree, thin shirt buttoned up the wrong way, his beard rough, his hair scattered. He rushed forward as the bag burst open and old clothes spilled onto the ground. He knelt to gather them, his fingers shaking. "Please, Ma," he said softly. "Don't do this." Monica stepped between him and Sandra and shoved them both toward the gate. "Out!" She pushed hard, so hard that Sandra almost fell. Sandra's hands flew to her stomach as if to protect a baby. Johnson caught her just in time. The rusty gate creaked, then slammed, cutting off the only home she had ever known. The compound went quiet. Only the wind answered a low, dry whisper through the neem leaves. Sandra's throat closed. Tears made the morning sky swim. She pressed a hand to the round shape under her gown and looked back at the shut gate, at the windows with eyes hiding behind them, and wondered if this was the end of her life, until Johnson leaned close and said in a voice that did not match his ragged clothes, "Sandra, there is something I must tell you." And Pifa, hours earlier, before the shouting and the dust, the house had been silent. It was the kind of silence that doesn't let you breathe. Sandra's room was small, just a thin mattress, a wooden chair, and a window that stuck when you tried to open it. She stood before the cracked mirror, pinching her cheeks to bring color to her face. On her bed lay a neat pile, old wrappers, 2 faded blouses, and a school notebook she would never write in again. Then she did it, the bold, risky thing that had kept her awake all night. She folded a long wrapper into a thick, soft roll and tied it tight around her waist under her gown. She layered another cloth above it. In the mirror, her stomach rose like a small hill. Her hands shook. "Please let this work," she whispered. The plan was simple and scary. Johnson, the man who loved her even when she had nothing, had told her, "We must leave this house. Your stepmother's punishment will break you." Sandra believed him. But Monica never allowed Sandra to step out without a reason, and she searched her every day when she returned. So Sandra and Johnson had planned a drama, loud and messy, so big it would end the suffering. A knock tapped at the window, 3 quick beats. Johnson's signal. Sandra's heart jumped. She opened the window. Johnson wore the same tired shirt, but his eyes were calm and focused. "Are you ready?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm scared, but I'm ready. Trust me," he said. "Just for today. Trust me." Before she could reply, the house woke up like a lion. Monica's voice rose from the corridor. "Sandra, where is my red scarf?" Sandra froze. The door flung open. Monica's eyes fell to the swell under Sandra's gown and widened, then became 2 thin lines. "What is that?" Monica hissed. Sandra opened her mouth, but no words came. Her throat was dust. The roll of cloth felt heavy and hot. Monica stepped closer, eyes sharp. She didn't touch Sandra. She didn't need to. Her words did the touching for her cold, hard slaps. "I knew it. You have brought shame into this house." The hallway filled with neighbors' shadows at the door. Someone whispered, "Monica, take it easy." Monica did not hear, and that was how the storm began. The dragging, the shouting, the dusty bag, the push out of the gate until the door closed and the world went quiet again. Now outside, on the narrow road that led out of the community, Sandra and Johnson walked fast. The red dust curled around their ankles. A goat bleated and tugged at a rope. Far away, a generator coughed awake. Sandra wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Johnson, I have to tell you something." Her voice was small. "I am not pregnant." She pulled at her gown, untied a knot, and the rolled cloth loosened and dropped a little. "I used wrappers to make a belly. I only wanted a way to leave. I am sorry. I didn't want to lie to you." Johnson stopped. He looked at her a long moment. Then Sandra could not believe it. He smiled. It was a small, strange smile, like he had been waiting to hear this secret. "I know," he said. "You know? I knew the moment you stepped out. I could see it in the way you held yourself." He took a slow breath. "Sandra, now I must tell you my own secret." In Dr. the Surd, he pulled a small, smooth phone from his pocket. It was new. It was clean. It flashed in the Sunday. Sandra blinked. The phone was not from the kind of life they had just walked away from. Johnson's voice changed, steady, deep, used to giving orders. "Sam," he said into the phone, "bring the car. Bring the convoy. Now." "The convoy?" Sandra echoed. Her head swam. "Johnson, what do you mean?" "You were brave today," he said. "I asked you to trust me. Now I will show you why." A few minutes later, the road began to hum. First, one black SUV, then another, then a third, sleek, tall, shining, rolled into the narrow lane as if the world belonged to them. The first one stopped beside Sandra and Johnson. A driver in a crisp white shirt jumped out and opened the back door. "Good morning, sir," the driver said, bowing his head. "Morning, Sam," Johnson replied, calm like the sea. "This is Sandra. Treat her with honor." Sam's eyes flickered with surprise for just a second, then softened. "Yes, sir." Sandra stood frozen. Neighbor kids gathered at a distance, wide-eyed. A woman carrying oranges stopped and forgot to sell. The whole street felt like a dream. Johnson turned to her. "Your stepmother called me a homeless man," he said softly. "But I wore these clothes on purpose. I needed to see a heart that chooses love, not money." He touched the frayed edge of his collar. "My name is Johnson Chukwuma. I am the CEO of J Crest Holdings." The words felt like thunder in clear sky. Sandra held her breath. "CEO?" The letters did not fit with the man who had shared roasted corn with her by the roadside, who had waited with her after chores, who had held her hand without shame. "I have been hurt before," Johnson said, eyes gentle now. "I have seen people smile with their mouths and hate with their hearts. I wanted to find one true person. And you, Sandra, you risked everything for freedom and for a chance to live. You are that person." Sandra's knees almost gave way. She gripped the doorframe of the SUV to steady herself. She felt her whole life shifting like sand under rain, old pain washing away, a new road appearing. "Will you come with me?" he asked. "Let me show you your future." She looked back down the road, the way to the compound with the shut gate, with the whispers and the fear. Then she looked at the open car door, the soft seat waiting, the driver standing with respect like she mattered. Her answer rose from a place inside her that still believed in tomorrow. "Yes," she said. They slid into the car. Cool air wrapped around them. The engine purred. The convoy moved like a promise. As they drove past the market, people turned to look. A boy waved. Sandra waved back, shy and bright. She pressed her face to the window and watched the city change small shops into tall buildings, narrow lanes into wide, smooth roads. The roofs no longer shook in the wind. The houses no longer leaned. At a traffic light, Johnson reached for her hand. "You wanted school, Sandra," he said. "You will have it. You will have time to study, to breathe, to grow. No more chains." Tears pricked her eyes, but they were not the old kind. They were new, warm, and soft. "Thank you," she whispered. The cars turned into Ikoyi. The sun slid higher, gentle now, painting the tree-lined streets gold. They slowed before a high white wall and a tall black gate. A guard in a neat uniform saluted, pressed a button, and the gate began to open. Sandra held her breath again. Through the widening gap, she saw a wide driveway that looked like a river of stone, flowers in pink and white, and the edge of a house so big it seemed to hold the sky. A woman in a navy suit stood on the steps, hands folded, waiting. "Welcome home, sir," the guard said. Sandra's hand tightened around Johnson's. Her heart beat loud in her ears. The gate reached its widest point, and someone stepped out of the mansion and onto the marble steps. Someone whose face she could not see yet, but whose voice carried across the air like a bell. "Is she here?" The heavy black gate swung fully open, and Sandra's breath caught in her throat. The driveway was wide and polished like glass, lined with flowers in colors she had never seen this close before. Bright pink, deep red, and soft white. Water splashed gently from a fountain in the center, and beyond it stood a mansion so tall and shining it looked like it was built from another world. Sandra's heart pounded. Just yesterday, she was scrubbing plates in her stepmother's kitchen, dodging insults and hunger. Now, she was in a world that felt like a dream. Beside her, Johnson squeezed her hand, his calm eyes watching her every reaction. "Welcome to my home, Sandra," he said softly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She wanted to ask if this was real, if she was truly awake. But the ground beneath her feet was too solid, the smell of roses too strong to be a dream. On the marble steps of the mansion, a woman in a navy suit bowed slightly. "Sir," she said to Johnson, "everything is ready." Then, her eyes shifted to Sandra. For a second, her professional mask cracked, and surprise flickered across her face. Sandra's fingers trembled. She tugged gently at Johnson's sleeve. They all know you." "Yes," Johnson said, still holding her hand. "And soon they will know you too." The driver Sam cleared his throat respectfully. "Sir, would you like us to take the bags inside?" Sandra glanced down at her old bag, the same one Monica had thrown into the dust. Its handle was torn, and threads dangled loose. It looked pitiful on the polished driveway, like a beggar that had wandered into a palace. Her cheeks burned. "Johnson, this bag." He knelt, right there on the stone path, and picked it up carefully. "This bag carried your life," he said, "so it will enter my home before anything else." He handed it to Sam. "Treat this as treasure." Sam nodded firmly, holding the bag with both hands. Sandra felt tears sting her eyes. No one had ever treated her belongings with respect, not even her father. Inside the mansion, cool air rushed over her skin. Chandeliers glowed above, walls gleamed like ivory, and the smell of polished wood and fresh lilies filled the wide hallway. Her slippers made no sound on the marble floor. She turned in a slow circle, dizzy from the beauty around her. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Johnson stopped walking. He faced her, his expression serious but gentle. "Sandra, listen to me. You belong here more than anyone I've ever known. You stood with me when I was nothing in your eyes, when you believed I was homeless, poor, and without hope. That is why this place will always be yours." Her breath hitched. She opened her mouth to answer, but the sound of footsteps interrupted her. A tall man in a grey suit descended the stairs, holding a file in one hand. He looked every inch the kind of person who lived in a mansion like this. "Sir," the man greeted Johnson with a slight bow, "the board meeting is at noon. Do you want me to move it?" "Postpone it," Johnson said, without looking away from Sandra. "Nothing comes before her today." The man blinked, clearly surprised, then nodded. "Yes, sir." He turned and left without another word. Sandra's head spun. "Board meeting? Mansion? Sir? CEO?" She glanced at Johnson, a strange fear mixing with awe inside her. Who exactly had she agreed to follow? That evening, Sandra sat in a room larger than the entire bungalow she once lived in with her father. The bed was soft, the curtains were golden, and a tray of steaming food rested on a table. She could hardly touch it. When Johnson entered, she jumped to her feet. "Johnson, why me?" she asked suddenly, the question bursting out of her chest. "Why not one of those beautiful women in the city? Why not someone from your world?" He studied her quietly. Then he walked closer and placed something on the table, a photograph. Sandra leaned forward. It showed Johnson with a woman she didn't know, elegant and stylish. But her smile was fake, her eyes cold. "She left me," Johnson said simply. "When she learned I could not trust easily, she took my money and ran. Many did the same. I stopped searching for love until I met you. You never cared for what I owned, only for who I was. That is rarer than gold." Sandra stared at the photo, then at him. Her chest felt heavy and light at the same time. "I only wanted freedom," she admitted. "But now I don't know what this means." Johnson touched her shoulder, his eyes steady. "It means your life has just begun." Sandra's lips trembled. She didn't know whether to cry or smile. That night, long after the mansion went quiet, Sandra lay awake on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought of her father's tired face, of Monica's sharp tongue, of the dusty compound where neighbors pretended not to see her pain. She thought of the lie she told about being pregnant, and the truth Johnson revealed. She turned and looked at the closed door, knowing the man on the other side was not just a struggling graduate, he was a billionaire, a man who had chosen her, But why did it feel like this was only the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous than she imagined? Her eyes closed slowly, her heart pounding with both fear and hope. And downstairs, in his study, Johnson stared at a file marked Confidential Family Matters. His jaw tightened as he whispered to himself, "She doesn't know everything yet." The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, painting golden stripes across Sandra's face. She sat at the edge of her new bed, her fingers gripping the sheets tightly. Sleep had escaped her. The mansion was beautiful, but its silence was too heavy, so unlike the noisy streets of her stepmother's compound. A knock came at the door. Sandra's heart jumped. She stood quickly, smoothing the wrinkles from her old gown. "Come in," she said softly. The door opened, and a woman in a maid's uniform stepped inside. She was middle-aged, dark-skinned, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Good morning, madam," she said. Her voice was polite, but her tone carried something Sandra couldn't place. "Breakfast is ready. The master asked me to escort you." Sandra hesitated at the word madam. It felt too heavy for her shoulders. "Thank you," she replied, following the woman into the long, echoing hallway. As they walked, Sandra noticed the maid glancing at her several times, her lips pressing into a thin line. Finally, Sandra asked, "What is it?" The maid stopped. "Forgive me for speaking out of turn," she whispered, leaning close. "But you must be careful. Not everyone here is happy to see you." Sandra's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" But before the woman could answer, a door down the hall opened, and Johnson stepped out, dressed in a crisp black suit. His beard was neatly trimmed now, his hair combed back. He looked like a man who commanded the world. Sandra froze. It was the same face she knew, yet suddenly it felt like she was seeing a stranger. At breakfast, the long dining table was covered with dishes she had never tasted before. Fresh fruits, golden bread, steaming tea. Sandra sat nervously, afraid to touch anything. Johnson smiled gently. "Eat, Sandra. This is your home now." She forced a bite of bread into her mouth, chewing slowly. But her eyes drifted to the head of the table where Johnson had placed a locked brown folder. Bold letters stamped across it read, "Estate heirs, private." Her stomach knotted. She wanted to ask, but the words stuck in her throat. Later that day, Johnson drove her into town in a sleek black car that seemed to float on the road. Everywhere they went, people greeted him with respect. Bankers bowing, shopkeepers rushing forward, drivers pulling aside. Sandra's head spun. She felt smaller with each greeting. She whispered, "Johnson, who exactly are you?" He glanced at her, his eyes unreadable. "The truth will come soon, Sandra, but you must trust me." His words should have comforted her, but instead they wrapped around her like a rope tight, pulling, mysterious. That night, unable to sleep, Sandra wandered down to the study. The door was ajar, and light spilled into the hall. She peeked inside. Johnson was there, seated at a massive desk, the brown folder open before him. But what caught her breath was the photograph he held. It wasn't the one of the woman who left him. This one was different. It was Sandra, only younger. She wore her school uniform, smiling shyly at the camera. Her blood ran cold. That picture had been taken years ago, back when her father was still alive. But how did Johnson have it? Before she could move, Johnson's voice cut through the silence. "Come in, Sandra." Her legs shook as she stepped inside. "That photo, how did you get it?" Johnson closed the folder slowly, his face unreadable. "Because, Sandra, our lives have been tied long before you knew. There are secrets about your family truths that will shake everything you believe." Her breath hitched. What do you mean?" Johnson leaned forward, his voice low, steady, almost heavy with warning. "Your father was not the man you think he was." Sandra's heart slammed against her chest. The room spun. "Johnson," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "What are you hiding from me?" But before he could answer, the lights flickered, and a sudden knock echoed loudly at the mansion gates. Johnson's jaw tightened. He stood quickly. "Stay here," he ordered. "Do not open that folder." Sandra's trembling hands hovered over the brown file as the sound of voices rose outside. Her curiosity burned hotter than her fear, and slowly, very slowly, she reached for the folder. Sandra's fingers hovered above the brown folder, her breath sharp in her throat. The voices outside the mansion grew louder, men shouting, the iron gates clanging, but her heart was louder still. With trembling hands, she slid the folder closer and flipped it open. Inside were papers, neat and stamped with red seals. But what made her chest freeze were the photographs. She lifted one, her hands shaking so badly the picture rattled. It was her father, Emeka, the same weary man who once carried her on his shoulders when she was a little girl, the man Monica cursed daily before he died. But here he was, standing beside Johnson in an old black and white photo. Both were young, both in suits, smiling. Her lips quivered. They knew each other. She pulled another paper from the stack. It was a contract property shares, signed by Emeka and Johnson. At the bottom, bold letters read, "Co-founders of Anderson Holdings." Sandra gasped. My father was Johnson's partner. Her mind spun. Why had she never known this? Why had Monica always said her father left nothing but debts? Tears blurred her vision. She pushed deeper into the file and found something else, a birth certificate. Her name was there, Sandra Emeka, but scribbled in the corner in a handwriting she didn't recognize were the words, "For her protection, keep her away until the time is right." Her hand flew to her mouth. What did this mean? The door burst open. Johnson strode in, his face dark with worry. Behind him, the voices at the gate faded, as if he had silenced them with a single command. His eyes fell on the open folder. Sandra. His voice was deep, warning, almost pained. I told you not to open it. Sandra stood, clutching the birth certificate to her chest. Her tears spilled freely. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say my father was your partner? Johnson shut the door with a soft click. He walked toward her slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. Because the truth is heavier than you think. Your father was not only my partner, he was my brother. Sandra's legs gave way and she sank into the chair. Brother? That means... Yes, Johnson said, his voice heavy. I am your uncle. The room tilted. Sandra gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. But... the pregnancy lie. The marriage. Johnson crouched in front of her, his face softening with sorrow. I never saw you as a wife, Sandra. I saw you as the child my brother left behind. When Monica threw you out, I knew it was time to step in. I played along with your story because it was the only way to protect you quickly, without questions. If the world knew too soon who you really are, it would put you in danger. Sandra shook her head, her tears hot and endless. All these years, you watched me suffer under Monica, and you did nothing? His jaw tightened. I wanted to bring you here sooner. But your father begged me, before he died, to wait. He said there were enemies, men who wanted his wealth, his legacy, and his bloodline. If they knew about you, they would stop at nothing. I had to hide, even from you. Her chest ached with anger and sorrow. You should have told me. You should have trusted me. Johnson's eyes darkened. And now that you know, your life will never be the same again. A sharp knock rattled the door again, urgent this time. A guard's voice called from outside. Sir, the woman is here again. She refuses to leave. Sandra wiped her eyes. What woman? Johnson stood, his face grim. Monica. Sandra's blood turned cold. Johnson looked at her with steady eyes. She knows you are here, and she will not rest until she destroys you. The room fell silent, the air thick with dread. Sandra's fingers tightened around the birth certificate, her tears dripping onto the paper, and for the first time she realized the nightmare she thought she had escaped was only just beginning. The mansion gates clanged again, harder this time. Sandra's heart pounded as if it wanted to escape her chest. She clutched the birth certificate so tightly it crumpled in her hand. Johnson rose to his full height, his jaw set. Stay here, he ordered. But Sandra shook her head, standing shakily. No, if it's Monica, I need to face her. I'd not to let one the flaggage. Johnson's eyes softened with worry, but he nodded slowly. Then you will face her, but not alone. The main doors opened, and Monica stormed into the grand hallway, her wrapper tied hastily, her eyes blazing with fury. Behind her trailed two neighbors from the compound, whispering and glancing around in disbelief at the chandeliers and shining marble. There she is, Monica spat, pointing at Sandra. The shameless girl. So this is where you've been hiding, eh? In another man's house. Sandra's lips trembled, but she lifted her chin. For the first time, she did not feel like a frightened orphan. The weight of the mansion, the folder, and Johnson's presence behind her gave her strength. "This is my uncle's house," Sandra said, her voice low but firm. Monica froze. "Your what?" Johnson stepped forward. His voice carried like thunder. "Monica, you will not lie anymore. Sandra is the daughter of my late brother Emeka, and she is heir to what he left behind." Gasps filled the hall. The neighbors covered their mouths in shock. Monica's face drained of color, then twisted into rage. "That man left nothing," she shouted. "Only debts and disgrace." Johnson slammed the brown folder onto a side table. Papers spilled out: contracts, photographs, deeds. "These say otherwise. He left Sandra more than you could ever imagine." Sandra's knees weakened, but she stood tall. "You threw me out, Monica. You called me cursed. You made me beg for food. And now you see me here, you can no longer deny who I am." Monica's voice cracked as she hissed. "You don't belong here, Sandra. You belong in the dirt, just like your mother." The words cut deep. Sandra's tears spilled instantly. But Johnson stepped forward, his tone sharp. "Enough. If not for your greed and cruelty, Sandra would never have suffered the way she did. You wanted to erase her so you could keep what wasn't yours." Monica's shoulders shook. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. I only wanted a better life." Sandra's voice broke. "At my expense? At a child's expense?" Her question hung heavy in the air. The neighbors bowed their heads, unable to meet her eyes. Johnson turned to the guards by the door. "Escort Monica out. She has no place here." The guards moved forward, but Sandra raised her hand. "Wait." Her voice was steady now, surprising even herself. She walked closer to Monica, her tears drying on her cheeks. "You made me suffer. Yes, but I won't let your hatred destroy me anymore. I forgive you, but I will never forget." The hall fell silent. Monica's lips trembled. For the first time, she could not speak. Her eyes darted between Sandra's face and the glowing chandeliers above, as if the weight of her actions finally crushed her. The guards gently led her away. The door shut behind her with a heavy thud. Sandra turned to Johnson. Her hands still shook, but her heart felt lighter. "What happens now?" Johnson smiled faintly. "Now, you rise. The world will know who you are, Sandra. Not just my niece, not just Emeka's daughter, but a woman who overcame shame and cruelty." Sandra pressed the birth certificate to her chest. For the first time in years, she felt whole. She thought of her father, smiling beside Johnson in that old photo, and whispered softly, "Papa, I hope you see me now." Outside, the sun climbed higher, its rays spilling over the mansion. A new life had begun for Sandra, one born not from lies, but from truth, pain, and the strength she never knew she carried. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.